The crowd poured into the Bastille, freeing the remaining prisoners, more curious than triumphant when they discovered only 7. They seized gunpowder, shot, and weapons, but the greater victory was intangible. A fortress that had stood for centuries, that had come to represent royal intimidation, now lay in the hands of an armed populace. As Delaunay and some of his officers were led toward the Hôtel de Ville for interrogation, the mood on the streets turned vengeful. Insults were shouted, blows were struck. At some point along the route, the governor was beaten and killed by the mob. His severed head was raised on a pike and paraded through Paris, a grisly spectacle that burned itself into revolutionary memory. Other royal officials fared no better. That same day, Jacques de Flesselles, the city's provost of merchants, suspected by some of duplicity during the crisis, was also killed and his head displayed. The old order was literally bleeding out in the streets. At Versailles, about 20 kilometers away, the court lived in a different rhythm. During the day, partial reports of disturbances in Paris reached the king, but their significance was not immediately grasped. According to a later account, late on the night of July 14th or early on July 15th, Louis XVI was awakened and informed more clearly of the storming of the Bastille. In this story, he asks, "C'est un revolt? Is it a revolt?" And the Duke of La Rochefoucauld Linecourt replies, "Non, sire, c'est une révolution." No, sire, it is a revolution. Historians treat the precise wording as possibly apocryphal, but the sentiment captures a real turning point. What had happened in Paris was not just another riot. It signaled that royal authority could be openly confronted and physically overthrown. The next day, July 15th, Louis XVI rode into Paris. In the Hôtel de Ville, before a massive, armed, and jubilant crowd, he donned a new symbol, the tricolor cockade. The cockade combined blue and red, traditional colors of Paris, with white, associated with the monarchy. On July 15th, the Marquis de Lafayette, a hero of the American War of Independence and a liberal noble, took command of the newly formed National Guard. He helped popularize the tricolor as an emblem of a hoped-for constitutional monarchy, a compromise between royal authority and popular sovereignty. Alongside Lafayette, the astronomer and deputy Jean-Sylvain Bailly became the first mayor of Paris under the city's new municipal government. The municipal revolution in Paris, where old authorities were replaced or constrained by new ones chosen by citizens, mirrored similar transformations in many French towns over that summer. In practice, Paris had slipped from direct royal control. Armed citizens and their leaders now claimed a voice in how the city, and increasingly the nation, would be governed. The fall of the Bastille radiated far beyond the capital. News of an armed Parisian victory over a royal fortress spread through inns, markets, and village squares. In the countryside, rumor and reality tangled. Stories circulated that aristocrats and royal agents were organizing brigands to destroy crops and punish rebellious peasants. Fear of such conspiracies ignited what historians call the Great Fear, La Grande Peur, in late July and early August 1789. In many rural areas, peasants and villagers took preemptive action. They armed themselves, sometimes attacked manor houses, and in some places burned seigneurial archives, records that documented feudal dues, rents, and obligations. Violence varied by region, but the message was consistent. Centuries-old privileges and burdens were now open to challenge. Meanwhile, in Versailles, the National Assembly watched events unfold with a mix of alarm and recognition. If the revolution were to remain under some control, it would have to address the grievances fueling these uprisings. On the night of August 4th, 1789, in a dramatic session, nobles and clergy in the assembly rose one after another to renounce feudal rights and privileges. In a few hours, though implementation would be more complex, many of the legal underpinnings of the feudal order in France were swept away. Manorial courts, personal servitudes, certain exclusive hunting and fishing rights, and more. It was a revolution from above responding to a revolution from below. Later that month, on August 26, 1789, the Assembly adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Drawing on Enlightenment thought, and, in part, on the language of the American Revolution, it proclaimed that men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Sovereignty resides in the nation. Rights include liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. Law should be the expression of the general will. These principles in no way settled the concrete forms of government or the status of all inhabitants. Women and many others remained excluded from political rights, but they provided a new vocabulary of legitimacy. Meanwhile, in Paris, the Bastille itself was dismantled, stone by stone. A private entrepreneur, Pierre-François Palouet, turned fragments into souvenirs, paperweights, models, and relics, distributed around France and abroad to commemorate the day the fortress fell. One of the most famous relics was not a stone, but a key. The key to the Bastille was entrusted by Lafayette to George Washington, his former commander in the American War of Independence, and sent across the Atlantic. Today, it hangs at Mount Vernon, a physical link between the American and French revolutions, and a symbol of transatlantic struggles over liberty and authority. Revolution, however, did not follow a straight or peaceful path. On July 14, 1790, exactly 1 year after the storming of the Bastille, France staged the Fête de la Fédération on the Champ de Mars in Paris. Representatives from all over the country, along with Louis XVI and members of the royal family, gathered to celebrate national unity and the new constitution in progress. Lafayette and the king swore oaths to the nation and the law. Many hoped the revolution had reached a stable, balanced constitutional phase. But deep conflicts remained over the king's powers, the role of the church, economic hardship, war with foreign monarchies, and divisions among revolutionaries themselves. In the years that followed, the revolution would pass through the king's attempted flight, 1791, the proclamation of the Republic, 1792, the trial and execution of Louis XVI, 1793, and the Terror, during which thousands were executed as enemies of the revolution. Through all the twists, hope, war, internal purges, reaction, the storming of the Bastille retained a central place in revolutionary memory. It became the primal scene of the revolution, ordinary citizens, acting in concert, seizing a symbol of absolute monarchy and forcing a political transformation. In 1880, nearly a century later and under the Third Republic, the French state officially designated July 14th as the national holiday. Interestingly, lawmakers framed it as a commemoration of both the Fête de la Fédération, 1790, and, implicitly, the storming of the Bastille, 1789, linking the violent birth of popular sovereignty with the ideal of national reconciliation. Today, Bastille Day is marked less by memories of a prison than by parades, fireworks, and public celebrations. Yet behind the festivities lies the historical moment when a medieval fortress, long associated with royal arbitrariness, yielded to a different authority, the people of Paris. On that July afternoon in 1789, as smoke hung over the Faubourg Saint-Antoine and the Bastille stones began their long afterlife as souvenirs and monuments, the revolution announced itself not only in words but in action. From that breach in the walls flowed a new political language of citizens, rights, and national sovereignty that would echo far beyond France in the centuries to come.